He thought my money made me weak. Thought he could play me like those other women. But when I caught him red-handed, I reminded him exactly who he was dealing with. Some lessons cost everything. This one cost him me. They say money changes everything, but what they don't tell you is how it changes the people around you. My name is Ko, and at 34 I built something most people only dream about. A tech empire worth $3 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. Billion with a B. I started coding in my grandmother's basement when I was 16. Survived on ramen noodles and pure determination through college. And turned a simple app idea into the kind of success story that lands you on magazine covers. But success like mine comes with a price nobody warns you about. Every smile becomes suspicious. Every I love you gets filtered through the question of whether they loved you before they knew your net worth. I live in a penthouse that overlooks all of Manhattan, 43 floors above the city that watched me climb from nothing to everything. The view is breathtaking, but sometimes the loneliness up here can take your breath away, too. That's why meeting Devon felt like a miracle. 3 years ago at a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, not some fancy charity gala where people hunt for wealthy partners. I was there incognito. No designer clothes, no entourage, just me grabbing a latte before a low-key meeting. He was reading a book about philosophy, completely absorbed. Didn't even look up when I sat at the next table. When he finally noticed me, his smile was genuine, warm. He asked about the book I was reading, not my jewelry or my car outside. We talked for 2 hours about everything except money. He was a freelance graphic designer, passionate about his art, living in a studio apartment he'd painted himself. When he asked for my number, it felt real, pure. For the first time in years, someone wanted to know me, not my bank account. We dated for 6 months before he even found out who I really was. I'll never forget the look on his face when he walked into my penthouse for the first time. Shock, sure, but also something that looked like pride, like he was happy for my success, not calculating what it could mean for him. Devon proposed on a rooftop garden he designed himself with flowers he'd grown from seeds. No expensive ring at first, just a promise and a man who said he wanted to build a life with me, not live off my life. I cried that night, thinking I'd finally found someone who saw Kesha the woman, not Kesha the billionaire. We've been engaged for 8 months now, planning a wedding that feels like a fairy tale. But lately, something's been shifting. Small things at first. Devon's phone buzzing at odd hours. Calls he takes in the other room. Business meetings that run later and later. When I ask about his day, his answers feel rehearsed, like he's telling me a story instead of sharing his life. He started mentioning money more often, suggesting investments, talking about our future in ways that sound more like business plans than love letters. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe success has made me paranoid. But when you've built an empire by trusting your instincts, you learn to listen when something feels off. And right now, something definitely feels off. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning when Devon forgot his laptop at my place. He was rushing to a client meeting, kissing me goodbye at the door, when I noticed it sitting on the kitchen counter. I called him immediately, but his phone went straight to voicemail. So, I decided to drop it off at the address he'd given me for his meeting. That address led me to a residential building in Queens, not an office, not a coffee shop, a brownstone with flower boxes and children's toys scattered on the front steps. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, laptop in hand, trying to make sense of it. When Devon finally emerged, he wasn't alone. A woman with caramel skin and a bright smile walked beside him, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly. They looked comfortable together, familiar, like they'd done this walk 1,000 times before. I watched him kiss her cheek before getting into his car. Not a friendly peck. A lingering, intimate kiss that made my stomach drop to my feet. I followed him at a distance, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. He drove to a completely different location for his supposed client meeting. Everything he'd told me that morning was a lie. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying what I'd seen, searching for innocent explanations that didn't exist. When Devon came home acting perfectly normal, asking about my day with that same warm smile, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. How long had he been lying to my face? How many other meetings were actually visits to her? I hired a private investigator the next day. James Cordwell, former FBI, comes highly recommended for discretion. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there had to be an explanation. But 2 weeks later, when James handed me a manila folder thick with photographs and receipts, I knew my instincts had been right all along. Her name is Jasmine. They dated for 4 years before he met me. The pregnancy 6 months along. The timeline made my blood run cold. He'd been with her throughout our entire engagement. The cozy apartment in Queens was theirs together, paid for with money he'd been siphoning from our joint accounts. Fancy dinners I thought he was taking clients to were actually romantic dates with her. The jewelry I'd noticed him buying, claiming it was for his sister's birthday, was all for Jasmine. But the worst part was yet to come. James had recordings Devon talking to Jasmine about their future together, about how he just needed to get through the wedding first. The wedding was his exit strategy. Our $10 million celebration was going to be his final payday before he disappeared with her and their baby. I remember sitting in my office, looking out at the city I'd conquered, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. This wasn't just about money. This was about 3 years of my life given to someone who saw me as a business opportunity. Every kiss, every I love you, every moment of intimacy had been part of his long con. The billionaire who could buy anything couldn't buy the one thing she'd wanted most, real love. But I could sure as hell buy justice. I spent 3 days planning the perfect confrontation. Not in our home, where he'd feel comfortable lying to me. Not in public where he could make a scene. I chose Leonadan, the kind of restaurant where conversations happen in hushed tones and privacy is guaranteed. I told Devon it was a celebration dinner for landing a new contract. He showed up in the suit I'd bought him for our engagement party, flowers in hand, playing the role of loving fiancé one last time. We ordered wine, made small talk about our days. I watched him lie to my face about a client meeting that never happened while I smiled and nodded. The man sitting across from me was a stranger wearing my fiancé's face. How had I missed it? How had someone who'd built a billion-dollar empire by reading people been so completely fooled? Halfway through dinner, I placed the manila folder on the table between us. Devon's fork stopped midway to his mouth. The color drained from his face as he recognized what he was looking at. The photographs were on top. Him and Jasmine holding hands. Him kissing her pregnant belly. Him carrying groceries into their shared apartment. Kesha, I can explain, he started. But I held up my hand. 3 years, I said, my voice steady, despite the storm raging inside me. 3 years of lies. 3 years of playing house with me while building a real home with her. The baby's due in 3 months, isn't it? Right around when you plan to disappear after our wedding. He tried to reach for my hand across the table, but I pulled away. It's not what you think. Jasmine and I, we have history, but you're the one I want to marry. You're the one I love. The audacity of his words hit me like a physical blow. Love. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. You want to talk about love while you're living a double life. While you're using my money to play house with another woman and her baby. Our baby, he corrected, and the words hung in the air like poison. That's when something cold and final settled in my chest. The hurt transformed into something else entirely, something powerful. Devon, I said, my voice calm as still water. Do you know what I'm worth? He looked confused by the question. What does that have to do with anything? $2. 3 billion, I continued, never breaking eye contact. Do you know what that means? It means I can buy and sell men like you 100 times over. It means I have more power in my little finger than you'll ever have in your entire pathetic life. His mask was slipping now. The charming smile was gone, replaced by something ugly. There it is, he said, his voice turning cruel. The real you. All that money, and you still can't buy what matters. You can't buy love, Kesha. You can't buy loyalty. All you can do is wave your bank account around like it makes you special. You're right, I said, standing up from the table. I can't buy love, but I can buy information. I can buy the best lawyers in the city. I can buy justice. I leaned down until my face was inches from his. I can buy your destruction, Devon, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. The power in that moment was intoxicating. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. Not the heartbroken woman who'd been played for a fool, but the billionaire who'd built an empire from nothing. The woman who never backed down from a fight. What happened next was swift and absolute. By the time Devon stumbled out of that restaurant, my lawyers were already in motion. The joint accounts he'd been stealing from were frozen within hours. The apartment he'd been paying for with my money, lease terminated by morning. Every gift he'd bought Jasmine with funds he'd taken from me was legally repossessed. Devon called me 17 times that first night, each voicemail more desperate than the last. First, he tried anger, calling me vindictive and cold. Then came the bargaining, promising to leave Jasmine, swearing his love was real. Finally, the begging. The man who'd played me for 3 years was crying into my voicemail, promising to do anything if I'd just take him back. I saved every message. Not for sentiment, but for evidence. The prenup I'd insisted on, which he'd signed so eagerly while dreaming of his payday, protected every penny of my fortune. But I went further than that. The money he'd stolen, nearly $200,000 over the past year, became the foundation for a theft case that would follow him for years. You don't steal from a billionaire and walk away clean. But the real justice came from something much simpler. I had James compile a complete report of Devon's activities and sent copies to every major client in his industry. In the design world, reputation is everything. Word travels fast about men who lie, cheat, and steal. Within a month, his business was dead. The man who tried to use me as his meal ticket found himself unemployable. 3 months later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Jasmine had left him, too. Turns out she'd thought he was successful and wealthy. When she discovered he was broke, living off another woman, and now had no income prospects, the fairy tale ended for her, too. The baby was born to a single mother, and Devon was last seen working at a coffee shop in New Jersey. As for me, I learned something valuable about power that year. It's not just about the money you have. It's about knowing when and how to use it. For 3 years, I'd been afraid to be too much, too successful, too intimidating. I'd made myself smaller, quieter, more palatable for a man who never deserved me in the first place. Never again. My company launched 3 new products that year, each one more successful than the last. I bought a second home in Malibu, joined 2 new charity boards, and started dating again when I was ready. This time, I was upfront about who I was from day one. No hiding my success, no apologizing for my achievements, no making myself smaller for anyone. The right person will celebrate your power, not try to diminish it. They'll stand beside you, not behind you counting your money. They'll love you for your strength, not despite it. I learned that I'm not too much. The world just needs to catch up to women like me who refuse to dim their light for anyone else's comfort. My worth isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in the courage to walk away from anyone who can't handle my magnitude. And to any woman listening who's ever been made to feel like her success is intimidating, like her power is threatening, like her achievements are somehow unfeminine, let me tell you something. You are not the problem. Never apologize for being exactly who you're meant to.